Hi, welcome back, and perfect timing and always a delight and an honor, quite honestly, when we have time to sit down with Dr. Tim Murphy. He's a licensed psychologist and the clinical director of the Fortis Future, which is a center focusing on the care of veterans, military, and first responders with PTSD. He's a recovering politician because he was elected to the U.S. House of Representatives from Pennsylvania's 18th District 8 times. 2 times 8, that's 16 years there. He's the author of a must book in everybody's library that manages people. There it is, called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. What a resource. Check it out. His website is drtimmurphy.com, and there's the picture of the landing page. Dr. Murphy, good to see you again. Happy New Year, buddy.
Great to be with you. Thanks.
Oh, there you are.
Back.
Okay, good to see you. Thanks for your time. So much to talk to you about. Is AI creating a new fear syndrome?
Oh, absolutely. What's happened is we're not ready for this because human beings still want to trust each other and communicate with each other. And we now live in a world where AI is every day, every moment trying to mimic a real human interaction. And so it's very easy to fool people into thinking that it's real. And what happens is particularly those who remain online for hours a day are in a situation where they can have almost develop a relationship with AI and not even realize it. You look out there where companies are actually promoting the idea that you can use AI as your personal counselor, which is very scary. And people are starting to do that. In some cases, getting really bad information. In some cases, really, it's leading to severe mental health problems and even suicide.
It seems to be creating a false reality. And those who are in it, do you think they understand that?
Not necessarily. I think a person can be advised and be thinking, I understand this is just a computer, but it's okay to look at that for some advice. I tell people, if you wanted to proofread what you wrote, then okay, it'll let you know some mistakes and offer some other advice. If you wanted to write for you so you no longer are doing thinking on your own, now you're starting to get in trouble. In fact, the research is telling us that those who use AI a lot lose their skills at thinking and problem solving and writing because they simply rely on computer machinery to do that. As that goes on, we are less discerning to understand what is right and wrong because we rely on something else. Can you imagine Jesus in the desert? Okay, the devil says to him, why don't you turn these rocks into bread? And Jesus says, yeah, well, you're my computer. You must be telling me the truth because no one would lie to me this way. Wouldn't happen, actually. But what happens is, the devil is oftentimes drawn in pictures of horns and ugliness and a goat face and things like that. And you and I know that's not how the devil looks. The devil presents itself in very cunning ways, an attractive person, money, delicious food, and all these things to wear us down, and of course looking for the weak person. And it is those who have a weakness and not necessarily good psychological direction or a moral certitude of what they're facing in life are those most vulnerable to this, and I think it's making situations worse.
Is it making us lazy?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people, I have found that among folks who I work with or talk to about writing, that they put some topic in and let it do it for them. College professors have practically given up on the idea of asking students to write papers on their own. And they may look for some signs of literary style that AI may have, but it's one that even them, they don't know. So what's going to happen is we graduate more students who depend on AI, as more adults depend on it in the workplace, as more companies use it to replace employees. People will find they're losing some of those sharp cognitive skills, particularly creativity. Even musicians I know who are some pretty good music writers, they say, gee, I hum this little tune in, put a few notes in. Next thing I know, I've got a 5-piece band writing music for me. I sound pretty impressive. Well, no, it's not you anymore, and people are losing that skill set. So yeah, it is, I think, making us lazy. We're relying on something else to do our thinking and creativity for us.
So I guess my question, Dr. Murphy, is as it relates to education, at the end of the day, are we just getting computer smart people and not educated people getting a diploma?
Absolutely. So here's one way of testing that out. If I oftentimes in some of my writings or conversation will drop a quote from someone, even if it's someone pretty famous, Winston Churchill or Ronald Reagan, a biblical quote, a Shakespeare quote. People say, "Oh, where'd that come from?" And people just are not memorizing things anymore. Classic education, not too long ago, 30, 40 years ago, did include a lot of reading of the classics, reading of important essential books, memorizing some lines. That is just not there anymore. It's not a matter of memorizing information or learning critical thinking methods. Now it's learning how to you have a computer do that for you. It is really enslaving us, because we are chipping away bit by bit at giving up our freedom and letting someone else take it for us, because it seems like easy pickings, right? Well, here's a way of looking at that. When the Lord created Eden and he put Adam and Eve there, gave them everything. They get friends with the animals, plenty to eat, just enjoying life in that garden. And you know what? It wasn't enough. It's got to do everything but leave this tree alone. No, we're not going to do that. And that's where, as humans, we get tempted, that our comfort makes us tempted. We want to do more. We want to pull in this temptation, and it's a downward spiral. I think it is going to make us worse. Not to say it doesn't have its benefits. It does. But what I think the drawbacks, one has to be very, very careful of what this does to our focus in life.
What does it do to our brain? I mean, how do we process reality?
Well, actually, it makes it harder for us. More and more studies are coming out in terms of lowering our ability to, for example, have a cogent argument. Let's look at some of the conditions of what goes on in the world now. A lot of demonstrations, a lot of anger. Look at what's out there on Facebook, on TikTok, on Instagram, X. Look at all the different social media out there. You're told you have to do something very short, a few letters, a few words. So it's much more pointed in what people say, and so they look for AI to help them say it for them. The brain of people are no longer capable of maintaining attention for 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. I'm old enough to remember news programs used to have a segment that may last 3 or 4 minutes of telling a story on the evening news. Now, maybe 15 or 20 seconds. And then a little analysis of that afterwards. So our brains are becoming less and less capable of maintaining attention. Lots of studies are saying this, less capable of maintaining attention and less capable of the thinking process that goes to discerning and analyzing what we're hearing. So more susceptible to quick influences of that little dopamine surge of a little pleasure of having someone do our thinking for us.
One other question here before I take a break. What impact is AI having on physical health and mental health?
Well, physical health, if we're spending a lot of time sitting around, it's not helping us at all. We need to be moving. If it is helping to inspire people with information, I mean, let's say, for example, a person can have a very detailed personal health record and personal workout record to get up there and do things. So it can be helpful. So as we get more information, your genetics, your body type, and all those things to get up and move. If, however, people say, well, I need to get up and move, I can sit here and be entertained all day, that person has a very basic problem. That becomes a serious mental health issue if reliance or over-reliance on social media and AI takes away that motivation. In other words, it demotivates us from discernible thinking. But the benefit is it can really help a great deal in terms of medical practice. I was talking with a physician the other day who told me that when it comes to dealing with the diagnosis of heart disease, for example, they can make it person-specific based on a lot of data that AI can analyze much faster and much more thoroughly than a doctor can. However, AI can't hold your hand. AI can't look you in the eye and soothe you when you get a bad diagnosis or encourage you to get up and move. So benefits and drawbacks with that. Mental health issues, I'm more concerned about that. AI can be a coach and can pretend to be there to work with you and can perhaps help in a diagnosis of a mental illness. But the biggest issue with mental illness in our country now is alienation and loneliness. Loneliness can be as lethal and lead to such more chronic and lethal conditions as cigarette smoking, for example. AI is not going to get rid of that loneliness. We need that human factor. And there's other aspects that go with that too, in terms of AI can end up buying into someone's delusions and encouraging them to get sicker. So we have to watch out for that.
All right, let me take a quick break here. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, first of all, check out Dr. Murphy's book called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. Look, this is a resource. And if you manage people or you organize people, this is a this is a must book in your library. Pastors, get a copy of this. Anyways, as the other website, or his website is drtimmurphy.com. Check that out. There's a picture of the landing page. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Always an honor to have with us Dr. Tim Murphy. He's a licensed psychologist, and his book is a great resource. Check it out online. It's called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. He does have a website, drtimmurphy.com. Okay, Dr. Murphy, during the break, I was trying to figure out how to ask this question. I remember pre-COVID, national survey showed that the leading emotion in America was loneliness. Post-COVID, that's been replaced with fear. And given the rise of civil unrest in this country, I can't help but think that's fueling fear. We're seeing power struggles, we're seeing agitators, we're seeing all this stuff. It just seems to be so crazy. How is that affecting us psychologically as a people?
It's affecting us a great deal. I'm glad you brought that up, because let's look at the recent news of the demonstrators who stormed the church in Minneapolis. These demonstrators are out there. Keep in mind they're trained. They're trained to intimidate. They're trained to provoke. They want people to respond with fear, general citizens. They want police to respond with fear and then aggression, verbal and physical, so they can use it to say, oh, look, I'm a victim. You can see films of policemen simply saying, you know, back off, and that person falls on the ground screaming, I've been hurt, I've been attacked, and just making this up. They want policemen to have nightmares and to have traumatic reactions because they want these things to happen. When they go into a church, first of all, these are not religious people. Let's face it, when they come and say, oh, I'm a Christian too, I practice in a different way. No, you don't. Don't give that big fat lie out there, because someone who's a Christian does not go into a church and disrupt a service. You don't do that. What they want to do is intimidate not just the pastors, but the people in the pews. They want those people to be afraid of going to church. So they want to intimidate them to say, don't trust God and don't trust your church to protect you. They want people then to respond to the communities and police and say, back off, I want to go to church. Or they had more loneliness in their lives. They had more alienation. We know that those who regularly attend church, not just have a belief in spirituality, but regularly attend church, are much more equipped to deal with depression, anxiety, and the difficulties in the world. These groups are intentionally working to break that down. I find it interesting that they'll talk about, you know, accusing everybody of being a fascist. But a fascist technique, the Nazi technique prior to World War II, was to intimidate people in churches, to go after Jews, to go after Catholics, to go after socialists, to go after other established religions and Christians in Germany, because they knew that they had to get rid of these groups because it gave people strength. They wanted them to only look to government. And so these groups are out there constantly trying to intimidate. I want people to remember this. They're paid to hurt you. They're paid to hurt you psychologically and instill fear in you. It is now more than ever that we need to step back and think, well, okay, wait a minute. The Bible is filled with stories of people who have been intimidated and attacked. I mean, we can go on for hours talking about all of them, of what happened. The Babylonians attacked, the Jews fleeing into the desert, Mary, Joseph, and Jesus fleeing into Egypt, the subsequent attacks against Christians go on and on, how Paul developed resilience and resistance to the attacks, no matter what they did to him, beat him and thrash him and stone him, because he always looked to say, hey, this is small compared to what Jesus went through. One of the videos I saw of this attack on the church was a woman standing there facing these demonstrators with their hands up, praying for them. They don't know how to handle that because she showed strength and resilience. And the pastor very calmly said, hey, we're here to praise the Lord. We're here to praise Jesus. And he never broke in terms of what they were trying to do. I suspect they'll continue to do that, not just in churches, but on the streets and other places, to have people succumb to fear. So a lesson I suggest for your viewers and listeners, don't give in. It is a time for more prayer. It is a time for more Bible studies. It is a time for more gathering together. Look at the lessons of what the Bible and Jesus and God's teachings to us about not giving into this. That's their plan. Don't let fear overtake you. Instead, understand that that's the work of these groups, and don't give in.
Just leaning a little bit on your political experience, you mentioned several times these people are paid to do that. Why don't we hear more about that?
Well, I don't know. I mean, you can see sometimes videos of, you'll see, why is the same demonstrator showing up in town after town? I know when I had demonstrators working against me, they called them Murphy Mondays. Monday morning, they would go to get some training from a local union hall and what to do. And they would come to my stand outside my office with signs made to look like they were homemade because they had training on how to do that, would chant certain things. And if they saw me or one of my staff, they had prearranged things to yell and scream, never want to engage in dialogue. I'd offer them meetings to talk, and they didn't want to do that. They wanted to meet in large groups. So trained to do this, and they're paid trainers. Not all the demonstrators are, but a lot of the demonstrators are people who themselves get caught up in this. They're constantly watching social media and believing that everything they see is true. Now, that being said, certainly support their right to demonstrate, their right to express their points of view. But it's not a right to impede law enforcement or to attack police or resist arrest. That stuff's against the law. But we need to hear more about, and I want people at least to understand, these folks are designed in everything they do to upset your life. Don't give in. Learn the lessons of Paul. By his stripes we're healed. Understand that no matter what they do to you, they can't break your faith, and that's part of what they're trying to do.
Is it evil?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, let's look at the things here. I mean, when you raise questions with people to say, okay, well, these law enforcement people there are to arrest a serial child molester. And you would think that those in some of these demonstrations say, okay, I got it. We want a more secure community. They won't even have that discussion. They'll start screaming and intimidation and in the face of law enforcement. They're not discerning this. And I think this is where evil has grown in and captured a lot of the mood of society there, where people have given up their ability to think through. You know, if some of these demonstrators said, look, in these cases, we understand, we don't want unsafe communities. And if there's people out there who are murderers and molesters and rapists and abusers and all those things, please rid our community of that. But you look all the way up even to the level of the governors and mayors in towns saying, leave them alone. Because they have this belief that if someone is committing these crimes, that you have to excuse them because they've had a difficult life. Like, a lot of us have had difficult lives. A lot of us have made mistakes. But what changes is people have to know there's consequences for that. You know, and they say, well, Jesus forgives. Yeah, God forgives, but you got to be someone willing to be forgiven, and you have to be feel that sense of guilt and want to redirect your life. So I think this is a conflagration of a lot of things going on in terms of manipulation and evil here as well.
How close to lawlessness are we? Because it seems like we're losing our conscience of law.
Well, that's a great question, Perry, and one that's kind of frightening, isn't it? Mm-hmm. That we're at that point now, that some of these communities are that way because they no longer have leaders in them that are encouraging people to obey the law. When you have a city where the police and the mayors and the governor are saying, look, you want to demonstrate and state your point of view, do that peacefully. But you have people like the governors of Minnesota and Illinois encouraging people to be disruptive. You have them with the statements they're making on social media and verbally encouraging people to be disruptive, not saying, calm down, let's look at the facts, let's find a way of doing this. You see leaders absolutely blocking conversation and solutions on this. Any of them could sit down and say, all right, let's see what we can do to work this out, but they're not. So those are all things adding to the fear factor for people.
Okay. I guess what's so amazing to me is that there's so much in the news today that's creating this fear, as we talked about earlier. And then it's obviously offset with, well, we're in the end times, therefore. But it doesn't translate into evangelism. There seems to be a gap there.
Yeah, I don't know if this is the end times or not. Let's look at what we're told to do. We need to understand these basic things. God loves us, has an amazing plan for us, right? Sin has broken that down. The Lord's God has sent His Son to redeem us from those sins. It's up to us to recognize that, to be baptized, to become part of a church, and to evangelize. Those are the important parts here. Evil and other people are trying to break down that whole cycle. Say, don't trust the Lord. Don't trust the Lord's writings. Don't trust religion. Don't trust faith. And what some people are saying, this must be the end of time, that if it is, let's just get prepared for this when all is going to break loose. There's been a lot of more evil times in our history. What it requires is not people to give up and say, okay, this is the end, but it's going to require courage. Remember Gideon? And his silly little test he has, well, I'm not going to really believe this is God talking to me unless you can keep this fleece dry and the ground wet, or the next day the ground wet, the fleece wet, the ground dry. I forget the order. But we don't need to have silly tests like that for God. We just have to say we have to stand strong. When Jesus chose the apostles, I love it when like Peter and them were fishing their boat, not catching much. In Luke, it describes it. Jesus says, can I stand in your boat and talk for a while? And by the way, why don't you fish out of the other side of the boat? And they did. And then he said to them, come follow me. This wasn't some random pick. We know that what rabbis did back then is if you were son of a carpenter and you weren't going to really be chosen to work with the rabbi said, you're going to make a great carpenter's son. Go on and do what your dad did. Or if you're going to be a fisherman's son, keep doing that. But now and then the rabbi said, you know what? You're someone who I want to teach and learn and take on my yoke and come follow me. That took a lot of courage for people to do that. And sometimes people couldn't do it. Remember, Jesus told the man, if you want to be part of me, sell all your stuff and come along. And the guy said, I can't do it. Okay, so it's not for everybody, but it is for the believers. And whether your courage is small or just growing, it requires a self-discipline in our communities among us to say, we've got to withstand this. We cannot give in. We can't give in to false science and manipulation. So I look upon this as, look, I never know if it's the end of times or not. That I don't have a watch for that. We're not notified of that. Right. But we do have to continue to be courageous.
About a minute to go here. Big question. Maybe you can give us a short answer. How do we handle cultural fatigue psychologically?
Whoa, well, there is, that's a great question. It is because we live in a culture that is breaking down culture. And it is a matter of always going back and say, what are the stable things we have learned over time? I just got back from a trip to Egypt and saw how a culture that went on for thousands of years with the pharaohs was broken down by lots of things. And a lot of that was sloth. And luckily Christianity came through too to change things. For us, it's a matter of be resilient, remember what truth is, always look at what truth is, and practice truth. Don't get caught up in the lies. And that's where we can help each other by helping each other to discuss and discern and pray together and build our courage and strength.
Do you ever encourage your clients to take a media fast?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, just get away from it. Put your phone down. I'd say it's not just don't eat for 12 hours. Try to take your phone away for 12 hours. And I don't usually get into direct plug in this in my book, but I lay a lot of these things out in my book, The Christ Cure. I want people to understand the Bible has answers for this, and there's psychological answers that are based on Bible lessons. Please, let's be resilient. Please don't give in. We've got to fight for this.
Okay. Dr. Murphy, you're an inspiration. Thank you, friend. Let me say to our viewers and listeners, check out the book called The Christ Cure, 10 Biblical Ways to Heal from Trauma, Tragedy, and PTSD. As I've said so many times, that this is a resource for you to have at your fingertips. If you are managing people, you're managing drama every day. And there's some help in this book. So check it out online. It's called The Christ Cure. And then, of course, Dr. Tim Murphy's website, drtimmurphy.com. Thank you, my friend. God bless you. Let's stay connected.
Thank you. God bless.